As a scientist, I can tell you that Sundays are only 24 hours long. But with NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV, you get every game every Sunday all in one place. That's upwards of 30 hours of NFL in one day. How can there be 30 hours in 24 hours, you ask? I have a theory. Magic. New users get NFL Sunday Ticket for 8 payments of $34.50 per month. Sign up at NFLSundayTicket.com. Local and national games on YouTube TV. NFL Sunday Ticket for out-of-market games excludes digital-only games and commercial use. Terms and embargoes apply. Availability varies.
Vitamin Water Zero Sugar has great taste, zero BS, and obviously zero sugar. For those with zero room in their calendar. Zero patience for slow walkers. Those who get 0 hours of sleep on a Saturday night. Have zero filter, zero given, and zero interest in grabbing a plain, boring water. Grab a delicious Vitamin Water Zero Sugar today.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn and welcome to How We Hear the podcast, and we are on the final countdown for our return to the Premier League action, where our first 3 games resulted in 6 points from 9 and meant we are all suffering from nosebleeds during the international break, as we could stare at the table and see us sitting pretty in 6th and technically joint 5th in the top flight. I just wanted to add that little bit at the end. So of course anticipation is high for our trip to Selhurst Park. And to find out all about Crystal Palace, we have a very special guest, a comedian and author who summed in for Match of the Day 2 back in the day, or the award-winning podcast, The Price of Football in recent times, which he presents with Kieran Maguire. And if that's not all, he is, of course, a huge Palace fan. So we're very pleased to welcome Kevin Day. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Chris. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How's things?
All right. I'm very pleased to learn that you're a true football fan by when you say we're joint 5th. That's exactly what a football fan should say, to curse that alphabetical order.
Well, precisely, and we're joined 5th with David Moyes' Everton, which has a bit of meaning.
Of course it does. I have to say, I wouldn't have predicted either of those teams would be joint 5th at this stage of the season. I was at your playoff final, and before I was a guest of the EFL. Right. And I did check beforehand when they invited me that I wasn't taking the ticket of either a Sunderland fan or a Sheffield United fan. And they said, no, you're just being a normal freeloader. It's the first time I've been in the corporate style at Wembley. Right. And I'm ashamed to say, for the whole game, I was the only person in my row actually watching the football. So few people, which is shameful. But how you won that game is beyond me. And I would have put any money on you going straight down with that team. Yeah. But I think you've bought some really good players, and those 2 home performances are fantastic. I think this could be the season where at least one of the teams promoted stays up, and I wouldn't put money against it being you. So
yeah, I'm gonna circle back on that and pick your brains on that. But just out of interest, were you the only one back within 15 minutes of the second half kicking off? Because that's how it usually looked for the corporate team.
I was there for the first kickoff, and I was there for the second kickoff. Yeah. It was strange as well, because quite a few people in there were football people. It's odd. It's not like the food. Well, it's nothing to do with the food. They all say on TV that they say, well, the food must be good. It's not
sandwiches.
It's not the quality of the food. It's the freedom of the alcohol.
Ah, right.
It's what it is. I think it's the free bar. Even when you've got ex-footballers who think, well, there's a big telly in here and the bar's free, I might as well stay and watch it on the big telly, essentially. But it was a fantastic. I mean, the celebrations when you scored that winning goal were fat. And I'm really pleased. My cousin, who's virtually my sister, her husband's a Mackham. He's a Sunderland fan, so I was really delighted for him. and I came very late to Sunderland Till I Die. I only watched it because if people nag me to watch something, I tend to stick my heels in.
Yeah.
But I only watched Sunderland Till I Die. I binge watched it earlier in the summer, and I defy any football fan not to fall in love with the Sunderland fans when you watch how anyone at the club agreed to let the cameras in and give them that level of access is beyond me, because I know the production company, and they are proper middle-class London chancers. So I can understand how they blagged their way in, but I genuinely cried when I think the last episode started with the funeral of one of the people. I cried, and also I didn't know, because when I was doing Match of the Day 2, Sunderland, Portsmouth were the two, and Birmingham City were the two clubs I used to really look forward to going to. It's quite often the case that the so-called smaller club in a region is much nicer. So Newcastle weren't particularly friendly. Southampton, very unfriendly. Aston Villa, not particularly friendly, but Sunderland. And I was so distressed to learn that brilliant press secretary who used to look after me, that she had gone as well. So, but I think you really would have to be made of stone not to respond to Sunderland fans. So I couldn't have been more pleased when Sunderland won that. And I've also realised you haven't asked me a question yet, and
well, no, I think Ricky Gervais went on the Overlap, didn't he? And he said the same thing. He said he wasn't really into football that much until he watched Sunderland Till I Die, and he just said the way they did it, and when they spoke to people, he said it's just that kind of, it came across as that community feeling, and that came across in that program, didn't it?
Well, it's not just a community feel, but it's just that, as all football fans, it's like when Simon Jordan was in charge of Palace, who I can't stand, and he can't stand me. It's just that helplessness in the face of having owners that are visibly running your club down. You know what I mean? And there's nothing you can do about it. And every football fan recognises the powerlessness. And I don't think there ever was a golden time when football fans had any actual power. But in this situation, you see a great historical club, one that my generation associates with the best goalkeeping save ever. Never mind Pele, Gordon Banks, the Jim Montgomery double save at Wembley for me is the best save ever. You associate Sunderland with FA Cup giant killing exploits. As a football fan, you know about their history before that. You know what a big club they are, and then you see it being destroyed in front of your very eyes by chancers, and you can't help but feel for those fans, and that's what came across for me. So it's really good. I was really chuffed to see Sunderland. I was hoping that this would be this would be 3 points easy on Saturday, which is less so the case now. I don't love you to the extent that I wanted you to stay up. Basically, as long as it's not at our expense, I don't mind. But I don't. I'd rather you've lost all 3 games beforehand and had your confidence shattered before turning up at Sellers Park. But we'll see.
Well, that's it. Well, I think once upon a time there was an illusion that football fans had some control, but we'll circle back into that because we'll get into the price of football. But actually, I listened to that recent episode, actually out today as we speak, and you and Kieran Maguire talk about the international break. Kieran made his feelings very clear, but it's been a weird one for Palace fans because actually all of the England coverage has been about Palace, hasn't it?
Do you know, I don't mind the international break, Chris. Not because I want to see England play, because that's been purgatory recently, but it's been such a negative time. The last couple of weeks, we've been just surrounded by misinformation, negativity, the whole Mark Gahey transfer saga, to the extent that Gabriel Clark, after the England game, and I like Gabriel, he's a decent journalist, he's very intense, but one of the questions he asked Thomas Tuchel after England had won 5-0 away from home, after Mark Gahey had scored his first England goal, he asked Thomas Tuchel whether Mark Gahey had turned up unhappy at the training camp because he didn't get his dream move to Liverpool. And we had that for Kelly Cates on Match of the Day too, referring to Mark Gahey as a Crystal Palace player. For now, it's like if Gahey was moving to Villa and that move fell through. It wouldn't even make the strap line at the bottom of Sky Sports News, but somehow, because Liverpool don't get to snap their fingers and get the player they thought they wanted, Liverpool perhaps could have waited. The deal has been negotiated for quite some time. It was quite obvious. It's only because Konate got injured that they suddenly went, "Oh, we'll go back in for Gahey then." It wasn't like the Isaac situation. Gahey wasn't agitating for a move. He was perfectly happy at Palace. He loves us. We love him. So the whole transfer window, the week beforehand and the days afterwards, just became so, it's just so annoying, basically. And the lack of information from people that are still happy to post this lack of information, as though if the phrase "I'm hearing that" needs to be banned from football completely, it just drives you up the wall. And it really annoys me that you'll find this with Sunderland as well. Even now, there are Palace fans for whom Steve Parish can't do anything right. There's nothing that he can do. If their train is late for work, that's Parish's fucking fault. Why can't he sort the trains out? It's like, I'm sure you'll have Sunderland fans who are like, should be. Why aren't we top? You won't be happy with staying up, and it's just it drives me up the wall. So actually, the international break came as a welcome respite from WhatsApp messages and texts and tweets from people who should know better. Really. So it's been quite relaxing. So I'm having to ease myself back into I know we'll be sitting in a pub on Saturday, and there'll be Palace fans go, "We're going to get battered today. The Sunderland are going to be full of energy. They're going to be so upbeat." And you'll say to them, "We haven't lost in 15 games. It doesn't matter. We've been lucky in every single one of them. We won the FA Cup, the Community Shield. We were so lucky to win the FA Cup." It's like, oh, for fuck's sake.
You know what? It's Sunderland have got their fair share of those. I mean, to be honest, I think with Sunderland, with our history, I think we are naturally glass half empty. It's because we have to be just to protect ourselves. But yeah, on that episode of The Price of Football as well, I heard you talking about the well-known Malaysian rock band called Display, which I guess is a first.
Well, that's the beauty. Yeah, both Kieran and I are baffled as to how popular The Price of Football is. We didn't particularly want to do a podcast about football finance. We were talked into it. We didn't realise how popular it would become. But I think that sort of thing is one of the reasons why it's popular. Is that Kieran and I basically we're old-fashioned because we're old, basically. But we are dyed in the wool. We are what FIFA would refer to as legacy fans. We do believe in the romance of football. We believe in the romance of football clubs being rooted in the heart of working class communities. We love the history and tradition of football. But every now and again, Kieran will say something and Siri will hear it and interrupt the podcast. Every now and again, my cat will jump on the table in front of the laptop, or his dog will bark. So it's that kind of level of everyday shonkiness that I think people quite like. We're the opposite of slick, which I think people kind of relate to, really, because most football fans are sort of the opposite of slick, and we're just as baffled by what's happening in the world of football finance as anybody else. So we don't just present these news stories or answer these questions and tell people what amortization is. We spend a lot of our time going, what the fuck is, and also because we always wanted to talk about not just Man United and Liverpool and Newcastle. We wanted to talk about Arbroath, and we wanted to talk about teams in Gibraltar or South America that were getting into trouble. And I think, again, that resonates with people that, unfortunately, we started when the Bury situation was happening, which should never have been allowed to. No football club should ever be allowed to go. And I understand. I talk to people and they say, well, why should a football club be treated differently to any other local business? And it's like, if you have to ask me that question, you won't understand my answer.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that, because football clubs are different to any other local business. It's heartbreaking if a local printing company goes out of business, or a local bookshop goes out of business. That's a terrible, terrible thing. But when a football club goes out of business, that rips the heart out of a town, out of a city. It really does. And when we saw it nearly happening again with Morecambe, and you get to know people who support Morecambe, it doesn't matter. Morecambe may well only have 500 season ticket holders, but to those 500 season ticket holders, they're as important. Morecambe are as important to them as Palace is to me, and Sunderland is to you, and Liverpool is to all those people who expect to click their fingers and sign Mark Gahey when they want to sign. Basically,
Yeah. So you said you were kind of forced into doing it. So what was the story about getting it up off the ground and getting it started?
was literally contacted by this chap called Guy, who worked at Radio 5, who emailed me to say he'd had this idea, would I be interested in hosting it? And I emailed him back to say, how did you get my email address, basically? And said, I think I wish you well with it, but it's not for me. And he said, well, I've got this guy called Kieran Maguire, and he said, would you at least meet? And we met, and both Kieran and I went, well, there's not a lot else going on in our lives, so let's give it a go. And it just so happened that because we started as the Berries, we were the first people to really make the Berries situation public. And then COVID started not long afterwards, and we kept going. We became part of people's routine during COVID, and it just gradually. I sometimes worry that we've made people too interested in football finance, because I sit in the pub before the game now, and all I really want to talk about is football. But people just keep sidling up to me and saying, "How are Chelsea managing to sign so many players?" And I go, "I don't know. I don't know." I ask Kieran the questions. I sort of drift away a little bit and then come back when he's finished. Also, the other thing is, what I think is popular, is that Kieran, I don't know whether Guy told him not to mention it, but we were 4 episodes in before Kieran told me he was a Brighton fan. Now, I know people don't fully understand the Brighton Palace rivalry, but it's intense. I mean, it's a proper rivalry. And I wouldn't have done it if he told me beforehand he was a Brighton fan. I probably would have said, no, thanks, mate. But I just assumed because he was mathematical. I don't know why. I assumed that he didn't have a football team. But then when he said that he was a Brighton fan, home and away, it's like, oh Christ, I'm in too deep now. So I think that tension kind of makes people laugh a little bit as well. But do you know what I have to say? I always said Match of the Day 2, Chris, was the best job I ever did. I loved that job. I spent 13 years traveling the country, meeting football fans, talking nonsense to them, listening to their desire, just, putting the sort of people on telly that very rarely get on telly to talk about football, getting backstage at football grounds, getting the insight I had. Even now at my age, if I'm on the pitch, it's actually on the pitch. To be involved with Match of the Day, which I grew up, well, as a kid, you go, it's Match of the Day. Although for me, it's the big match, which was the London regional thing. That's Brian Moore, God rest his soul, was my footballing hero as a kid, because he brought occasionally Palace on telly. But so Match of the Day 2 was my favourite job. But this isn't far behind it, I have to say. I've grown to love Kieran like a it's a cliche, but like a brother. Yeah. And I really look forward to doing the pods. And we have this, like, we do a live Q&A for members. So we did one last night, and there's 100 people on this live Zoom Q&A, and you recognise most of the names, and you start to. It's just fun, and it's just the live Q&A is great, because I don't know why. For some reason, we both think you can say stuff legally on a live Q&A that you can't on a pod, which is simply not true. You just have to rely on their good nature not to say, not to repeat what I said about Nottingham Forest's owner on the thing. But it is. I think it also indicates how, and I know we haven't talked about Sunderland yet, but it indicates how anxious people are about their football clubs and about the financial situation of their football clubs, and about the football fans' attitude to money. It's like, for example, early in the transfer window, Palace signed an Argentinian goalkeeper who was on a free. Argentinian goalkeeper. He's on the bench. He's Argentina's backup goalkeeper. We signed a kid called Borna Sosa from Ajax. 38 caps for Croatia. Can play left back, left wing back, left centre back. And we paid €4 million for him. And these are 2 really good buys, 2 really good squad additions. But as Palace fans are furious because we've only paid €4 million for 2 players. And what you say to people at the club is, just issue a press release saying one of them costs 20 million quid, the other costs 20 million quid, and Palace fans would be absolutely over the moon. They'd go, that's great business, because we've spunked away money we haven't got. But because they're cheap, they go, well, it's just typical. That's the sort of level we're operating at. And it's a strange thing, but anything that gets me talking to football fans, I love, because I just have yeah, I'd rather be sitting around a table talking to Palace fans, but if I'm sitting around a table talking to football fans, I'm almost as happy, because football fans, and there's still this strange thing, Chris, where people, and I love theatre, I love films, I've got all sorts of other things in my life, but there are still people who I work with who assume that because you love football, there's something slightly wrong about that you're kind of narrow and restricted. They don't realise that when you go into any pub before a football game, when you travel on any coach with football fans, you've got accountants, you've got cabbies, you've got lawyers, you've got people from all walks of life, intelligent people from all walks of life, united by this passion for their club. And I'd rather have a conversation with with a Sunderland fan or a Spurs fan about football in general than anyone about politics because football it just brings joy. Even when I'm moaning about it, there's a special kind of joyful moaning, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's a special type of joy coming from moaning about football
Yeah.
that comes out of that. But you had me lost in a haze of it's up for grabs now when you mentioned Brian Moore. But
Yeah.
but that famous line. But yeah, just because you mentioned it and you mentioned about that passion, we'll come back to the price of football actually. But because you mentioned it, that rivalry between Brighton and Palace, I would like to think I'm quite a knowledgeable football fan, and I still don't know where that comes from.
Well, it's one of I think it's one of the few, if not the only, rivalry to come from a specific event.
Right. Okay.
Because certainly when I was very young, and I've talked to a lot of much older Palace fans about this, and there was never any right, even though for decades we were in the Third Division South together. I did hear one old bloke who said, "Oh yeah, it's all to do with the gangs in the 30s, the Croydon gangs," but that's nonsense. There was no rivalry between Palace. It just so happened so we reached the FA Cup semi-final in 1976 and lost to Southampton, and never a penalty, I have to say. That I'm still bitter about that now. But in December, sorry, mate.
Just quickly, you beat Sunderland in the quarterfinal, of course.
We did beat Sunderland in the quarterfinal. I was on the train that broke down and couldn't get there. Basically,
Right.
I was at the Leeds game, which was terrifying. But then in December, in the second round of the FA Cup, because we were both in the third division, we drew Brighton. Now it just so happened that we were managed by Terry Venables, and they were managed by Alan Mullery, who hated each other from their Tottenham days. Really hated each other. Both of them thought they should be captain of Tottenham. Terry Venables thought that Mullery was basically a one-note tackler, had no would just run up and down. Mullery thought that Venables was a show pony, so they really didn't like each other, and that came across in the games. And our Palace team at the time was very much in the Venables show pony mode. We were attractive and exciting to watch, but we had a soft centre, whereas Mullery's Brighton team were just horrible, basically. But so we drew the first game, drew the second game, and the third game went to a neutral replay at Stamford Bridge, which I remember. I was only a kid. Horrible night. They battered us. We got a penalty that it wasn't a penalty. It was outside the box. And all the papers next day had a photograph of the sliding tackle groove that had been left outside. But regardless of that, at the end of the game, Alan Mullery came up towards the Palace fans and threw a handful of coins into the Palace end, which was bizarre. And then in the press conference after the game, he tore up a £5 note in front of the journalists and said, "I wouldn't give you that for Palace or their fans."
Right.
Which is what kicked it off. And then we both got promoted together. So 2 seasons later, we were in the first division. A couple of seasons after that, we'd been relegated, and Ron Nose took over, and for some reason decided to appoint Alan Mullery as manager.
Right.
And he was booed on in his first game, and he was booed on every single game afterwards. So it started from that, and to the extent it's still one of my favourite football moments, and it shouldn't be because it's a wrong thing. In 2016, when we beat Spurs in the fifth round, I think, away from home, So in the away end at half time, and we suddenly saw walking towards us this camera crew, and they seemed to have Alan Mullery with them. And what had happened is that some young producer at BT Sport then thought this would be a good idea. We'll interview Alan Mullery, Tottenham legend, but we'll put him in front of the Palace fans because he was manager of Palace. And for some reason, Alan Mullery didn't say, "I'm not sure that's the best idea in the world," because he can. So the boos just got louder and louder and louder. And we've got this famous Alan Mullery song, which we love singing, which has got an obscene ending. That just got louder and louder and louder. I doubt very much whether his wife was capable of doing what she's accused of doing in the. But anyway, that got louder. And then as he got right in front of us, this bloke must have been about 80. He threw a handful of coins at Alan Mullery. And I just went, we went, "What did you do that for?" He went, "He fucking started it." It's really strange because Kieran's one of those people who goes, football's more important than rivalries, which I don't quite get, because I think rivalries is one of the things about football that keep you going, and some of them are very, very bizarre. West Ham hate Oldham for because of an incident at one particular game, and I love that sort of thing. I'm all for that sort of bizarre rivalry. But Kieran's one of those people who go, "No, it's more important. Football's more important." It's like, yeah, I agree to an extent, but the Palace Brighton thing is, and it really annoys Millwall fans because Millwall, for us, they really despise us, and it really annoys them that we're just annoyed by them. But there's no real rival. We don't really give a toss about Millwall or Charlton. It's only Brighton, and it's a bizarre one. But I think possibly because half of the media live in Brighton, they sort of take it seriously. But some of the worst, and neither club, in the 70s and 80s, neither club had any real hooligan background. Some of the worst violence I've seen at football games has been at Palace Brighton games. It's a proper dislike. It's sort of the Premier League distills it a little bit, and Steve Coppell managed both teams, which is strange. And there was a period when we were 2 divisions above them for sort of 15 seasons. But my son, by osmosis, he's 29. He hates them, which is good. It's just for us. It's the rivalry. It's the one that we have to win. And at the moment, we're for the first time ever in this rivalry, we're slightly ahead, which is fantastic. But it's just, again, it's really because Kieran's so grown up about this sort of thing. I can't go on the pod and go, I have to wait until he mentions it, and then he thinks that I'm being cruel by deliberately not mentioning it, and then I have to say things like, "Well, it was a good game, wasn't it?" Which I really don't want to say. Yeah, it's like you can't see it from behind me. I've got it's one of my favourite pictures during lockdown. We beat them 2-0 away, and there were all sorts of Opta stats that we broke because we had 2 entries into their box, and we scored both times. I think the possession figures was something like 86%, 14%.
Bloody hell!
But we beat them with they had about 78 shots on target. But so I've got this brilliant picture of Benteke and Mateta scoring the 2 goals, and Mateta's goal was a back heel. He managed to nutmeg the goalkeeper with a back heel. So, and we thought at the time Mateta was one of the worst players we'd ever seen at Selhurst Park. He was terrible. So we thought at the time, right, he scored that brilliant goal. He's become a hero. Now get him out. Sell him to a Turkish club for £3 million. Get as much as you want. But no, it's a difficult one to explain to fans. But it's a fierce rivalry. It's not even a derby, really. If you define derby by local, but it's a proper fierce rivalry.
Yeah, it's a strange one. But we've got a half a similar one with Coventry, but not quite to the extent of.
That's interesting.
The relegation in the 70s.
When Jimmy Hill announced it.
Right. So it goes back to that. Then they did it again slightly in 96. And since then there's been, so we've got a little bit with Coventry like that. But
I'm so chuffed to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm really pleased to hear that.
And we've got you talked about the Charlton Millwall. We're a bit like that with Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough want to hate us, and we just don't care about Middlesbrough.
It's a strange one, isn't it, Middlesbrough? Because I've got a really good mate who's from there, and he's still it, when you talk to him about the rivalry with Sunderland and Newcastle, he goes, "No, we're a Yorkshire club."
Well,
But
yeah.
that's
Yep.
how he sees it. He's my sort of age, so and then I say to him, "Well, that's you're only saying that because Sunderland and Newcastle don't really care."
Yeah.
They go, "Yes, they do. They hate us." But I'm not sure.
No.
Not sure they do. But no, for him, it's Leeds. Leeds is there.
Yeah.
But then you say to him, "But Leeds don't give a toss about
Yeah,
it
yeah,
either."
exactly.
I mean,
It's the Sheffield clubs, isn't it?
as a football fan, that must be the worst thing to have no one who hates you.
Yeah.
I
That's
can't. That must be awful.
that's
Yeah.
Middlesbrough.
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like expecting the leadership of a team captain on the football field, but getting a sea captain. You wouldn't settle for just anything for your team. Shouldn't it be the same for your insurance? So don't settle for just any insurance when you can go with a leader. State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
United Healthcare nurse Crystal checked in on a patient.
We do a routine call after surgery, and I could tell in her voice that she was struggling.
Crystal knew she needed help.
And I knew that this is very serious. This is like septic. This is life-threatening.
And she knew just what to do.
And I called the hospital and said, she's coming in, here are her labs.
And got her the help she needed.
I see my role at United Healthcare as a life-saving role.
Hear more stories like Crystal's at UHC.com. Benefits, features, and/or devices vary by plan area. Limitation and exclusions apply.
They're in limbo. But just quickly going back to the price of football, because Guy Mowbray once said when we've kind of talked to him in the past that the more he found out about what goes on behind the scenes in football, the more he found it ugly rather than that beautiful game he grew up loving. I mean, do some of the things you talk about make you feel like that? And actually, do you think your podcast has actually got more important over the years with everything that's been happening?
I think that's a really good question. I'll answer the Guy Mowbray, who I like. Guy is a proper player, Guy Mowbray. I love Guy Mowbray. He's a really good commentator. But there have been times, I have to say, when some of the things we talk about and some of the things we learn about, we can't talk about because we can't prove them. Or we know they're happening. We know, but and our producer quite rightly says, "Well, we'll be in big trouble legally if you make those accusations." So there have been times when you do just go, "I'm not sure. I wish we weren't telling people this," because, like I say, it comes back to what I said in the pub, and I love the pub we drink in, the Parsons Arms. It's a proper old-fashioned London boozer, but it's a safe place. We've been in there for 30 years. As my wife says, sitting at the same table, talking the same bollocks to the same people.
Yeah.
And that's what you want. And I can't wait to get there on Saturday mornings. And I love it. But increasingly, so much of the conversation is about issues outside the actual football. I just want to talk about the game and the players. I want to talk about memories of games and players. Having to talk about amortization and obligations to buy. And I think we have introduced, I think it was just a coincidence. I think football fans were becoming more interested in this sort of thing before we started the pod. But we're very popular. We got a huge amount of, for an independent pod. I mean, we're not talking Rob Beckett, Josh Widdicombe numbers for their made up stories about their kids, which never happened. Podcasts, but we are very popular with football fans, and I do think I don't think we've become important or significant, but I think we have contributed to football fans wanting to find more about what's happening at the club. When I was a kid, Chris, a long time ago, you knew who owned the club. You knew the expression was always local boy. Good, and that was it. Beyond that, you knew nothing. You normally only knew that you'd signed a new player because the poor sod was marched onto the pitch at half time to sign to put and because our owner Raymond Bloyer for so long, he was the accountant for the massive Southeast butcher organisation. So quite often, the player we were signing would be wheeled on next to half a pig, right? Because Raymond Bloyer liked to have a pig carcass in the photograph to remind people that. So this used to be really bizarre. So you'd see the pig coming on, and you think, "Oh, great, we've signed someone." But beyond that, you didn't have any idea. And I almost wish. I don't think it would. I don't wish it was like that now. I think football fans have every right. Kieran's big obsession is transparency. And if you're paying 500, 600, 700, 1,000 quid for a season ticket, if you're paying 50 quid for a ticket on a match day, I think you've got every single right to know where that money's going and how the club is using it. But at the same time, I don't really understand finance. That's another of the reasons why the pod works. At the same time, I would rather not have to worry about things I can't control. And we've sort of locked ourselves into doing a pod that we don't really want to be doing, because in an ideal world, every football club would be owned by somebody decent who understood that they were the custodians of the club, and we wouldn't have to deal with FIFA being frauds, with UEFA being cheats, with club owners. And the fact is, and also because you lose sight as well of those club owners that are really good and really responsible, and that you ended up with club. I mean, the chances that you went through before you ended up with people now. But again, you've got the other thing is that there will be Sunderland fans going, we haven't spent enough, and come January, we need to spend more. So the pressure on football club owners is incredible. But I don't think we've changed the amount of information that football fans get about football finance. I think we've changed the attitude to football fans about football finance. But what we haven't changed is the amount of power football fans have, or the amount of leverage football fans have. Because the only thing football fans can do is not go to a game. And that's the one thing they don't want to do. It's like you see Sheffield Wednesday fans who are being shafted left, right and centre. And they say, well, we're going to turn up in the 11th minute, which is a great thing to do. But they wouldn't dream of not going to the game at all.
Yeah.
And they certainly wouldn't dream of not going, even if they're demonstrating and not going to the game. If Palace fans were to say, right, we're not going to this game, we'd still go to the pub beforehand for 2 hours and talk about, because that's the one thing that we want. But we have there is nothing we can do to a club owner to affect him. And I don't think there's ever been the case. We talk about, we romanticise football, but some of the football in the 70s, 80s, early 90s was awful. Some of it was awful. Not just the violence, but the pitches were shit. The football was shit. The players got injured left, right, and centre. Referees were shit. Some things never changed, but we romanticise it, and we talk. But I can't stand down to awake it. I can't stand. I really just don't like it. It looks like a wolf's kit, but there's nothing I can do about it. As it happens, I know people at the club, so I can say, okay, what? But there's nothing I can do about it apart from not buy it.
Yeah.
And that's not going to affect the finances of a Premier League club. So we've given people more knowledge, but no extra power, which is a kind of strange, a strange thing. And it's also, I think the big thing is, and we're talking about two Premier League clubs, which seems odd to me, because 15 years ago, if you said 15 years ago, I wouldn't have known what a podcast was. If you said to me 15 years time you'd be doing a Sunderland podcast about an upcoming Premier League game, I would have said, no, I don't think we will, mate. Really, and are we going to be doing this on hoverboards? We'll be flying to this meeting. Will we on something? Yeah, but again, the Premier League has become the be all and end all, right? Which is partly Sky's fault, I have to say. I mean, Sky do a great job in the actual coverage of the football, but I think Sky, no matter how much they try to sell the Championship as the second best league in the world, they've dug themselves into a hole, because they've given every football fan in the country the notion that the only joy is to be found in the Premier League. And that, for me, I think that's the worst thing that's happened to football in the last 30 years, to be honest. And the fact that the Premier League and the other three leagues are not connected in any way, I think is one of the most disastrous decisions of football. And it was the EFL who made that decision themselves when the ITV digital money came in and then collapsed.
Yeah.
But I think the disconnect between the Premier League and it's only in this country that there's no other country in the world where relegation from the top league is a financial disaster, and where the attempt to get into the top league is a financial disaster. It's as Kieran says, the precipice between if a club gets relegated from the Scottish top division, it's it financially makes very little difference. You get relegated from the Premier League, not just financially and business wise, but also football fans feel that their club's not a proper club unless they're in the Premier League, which is just nonsense. And which is why I understand. I've got three mates who in the past 2 seasons, 2 of them have gone off to support Sutton, and one of them only supports Crystal Palace women's team now because they just go, it's so much more fun, it's so much more relaxing, certainly for their kids, than the aggravation you get from being in the Premier League. For me, being mid-table in the Premier League, having lived through, we were in the 3rd division for a lot of my early years as a Palace fan. Then we went through 2 administrations, the second of which caused by that weasel Jordan. We were 5 minutes away from liquidation before the parish consortium sold us. So we were 5 minutes away. We had the Phoenix Club sorted out. We were 5 minutes away from going out of business. So having been through that, being mid-table in the Premier League is fantastic. But younger Palace fans who have pretty much only grown up with relative success are doing what Charlton fans did 15 years ago. No, we should be Champions League now. Like, Conference League's fine. We should be Champions League. It's like, no, fine. Mid-table Premier League, absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. In terms of our financial stability and in terms of my mental health. Right? To be in the Premier League, I'm happy with that. And I don't care whether every year BBC and Sky still treat us like you'll have this for the next 5 years. Any game you win against a team above you will be treated like you'd beaten Leeds in the final in 1973. It's like, even now, there's still this. If we beat Liverpool, as we've done quite a lot recently, I felt sorry for Eze when he came on against Liverpool for Arsenal, because it's the first time we'd lost to Liverpool in quite some time. But if we beat Liverpool or Man City, it's still, wow, what an incredible result.
Yeah. When
they should be going, no, there's an established Premier League team here. But you'll have that. You'll have that for the next 5 seasons. Any game you win this season against the team, it will be greeted with that sort of thing. And it's still, it is. I don't like the Premier League. I love being in it, I have to say. I love being in it, but I think it's the source of most of the problems for English football, I have to say.
Yeah. Well, look, let's go back a bit. Let's go back into where your love of Palace came from, because, and again, I think you've mentioned it. It sounds like you started getting into it around the Malcolm Allison years in the 3rd division, maybe.
Yeah. As a kid.
Going into the Terry Venables era. And I did notice as well that banging in the goals then was a future Sunderland striker, Dave Swindlehurst, all at that time.
Do you know what? I love Dave Swindlehurst. His wife used to work in the local bank. Gone now, of course. But he was a proper striker for us. He was a proper. It's that strange thing when you meet him as well, because he's a proper centre forward. And he's only just taller than me. I'm 5'10". You go, hang on a second. It's like when I first met Jim Cannon, who was like the hardest player we've ever had, centre back. And you meet him, and I was taller than him. You go, that's not. He was 6'4". I'm sure he was from my perspective. But Dave Swindlehurst was a great player. And I got into it. It's a strange thing to describe. Where I'm from, I'm a very proud Londoner. I have to say, I'm very proud to be from London. If I could put Londoner on my passport, I probably would. If I could turn the M25 into a moat, I'd happily do that. But I'm a very proud Londoner. But at the same time, in the same way that I'm half Irish, but I decided to support England as a kid, and I want England to win. But I don't understand how anybody who's a proud Londoner or a proud England fan can then not understand why people from other countries and other cities are just as proud. It's like, I'm proud of being from London, so of course I think you should be proud of being from Sunderland. Somebody who's from Manchester should be proud of being from Manchester. I can't. One of the few arguments I've ever had at a football game. I don't go to England games. I don't like the atmosphere, and one of the reasons is that I went with some mates to a game against Moldova, right? And there must have been 300 Moldovan fans, and then these blokes around us are booing their national anthem. We're going, what are you doing that for? I was just shit. I was like, well, they're as proud of being from. They got no rights. But yes. So what would you do if they booed our national anthem? Oh, cool. I don't get that attitude. So, but I'm a proud Londoner. But where I'm from in South London, there's nothing really, unless you're from there. It's sort of where three bits merge into one. So I'm not quite from Tooting. I'm not quite from Streatham. I'm not quite from Mitcham. But so it was football that gave me my first identity. And I went to primary school. I sat next to this kid who had a Palace shirt that his mum had made for him. And that it sort of started from there. So it was his dad that took me to my first games. But growing up, it was Palace that gave me my identity. And even now, when people say to me, I can see people, so I've got this strangely, people who know about football will recognise me. Most of the rest of the world, I'm happy to say I can walk down the street. I would rather walk down the street molested, I have to say, but I can walk down most streets. In SE25, I've got a great deal of celebrity. Most of the rest of the place, I'm fine, but football fans. But often people will look at me and they'll say, "You're a Palace fan, aren't you?" And that, even now at my age, makes me really proud. The fact that people identify me as a Palace fan. So Palace, growing up, it's Crystal Palace Football Club that gave me my identity, if you like. And then growing up, there's that time when you're sort of between the age of 15 and 25, when the only really important things in your life are football and music. That's the time when you're going to every home and away game, when you're travelling the country, supporting your club. And then in a strange way, because we always had a big away support. So the excitement of turning up at places like Shrewsbury with 1,500 Palace fans, you kind of like, and you feel like the cock of and there is that kind of excitement. And then when you're not going to football, we would read about football and we'd read NME, because you'd follow local bands and there was so many more places to. So they were the things that really gave me my identity. And then live music sort of disappeared. You grow up, you start doing things, you get married, you have kids, but football's always there. It's always been the baseline to my life, and it's always been Palace. And because I love Palace so much, I don't even hate Brighton fans, if you see what I mean. I hate Brighton as a concept.
Yeah.
But if I have to go to Brighton for it drives my wife up the wall, because if she's doing a show in Brighton, she works in theatre, and if she's got a show in Brighton, I go down to see the show and see. I won't spend money I won't get. She says, "Should we get some chips and go to the beach?" I say, "No, not for Brighton. We'll have to drive down to the coast a little bit, just in case I'm giving money to a Brighton fan." I know it's childish, but it's just the concept of Brighton I don't like. Because Brighton fans, I'm all right with Brighton. I'm all right with all fans because I fully understand and I expect fans of every club to be as passionate and as biased and as one-eyed about their club as I am about mine. It never annoys me. It never annoys when away fans celebrate. I'm happy to let them get on and celebrate. I don't understand football. West Ham are the worst. It's like you're celebrating a goal at West Ham, and you look around, all you can see is West Ham fans throwing things at you. It's like don't. It's fine. It's like when an ex-player scores a goal against you and celebrates. Doesn't bother me a bit. Of course he does. He's just scored a goal for the people who pay his wages. That sort of thing doesn't bother me because all that's important to me is that I love Palace, and it's as simple as that. And I'm a trustee of the Palace for Life Foundation. When I was asked to do that, it's one of the proudest moments of my life. It's because like every football club at every level, the foundation, Sunderland Foundation, is fantastic. Every football club's foundation do brilliant things for the local community and our community. There isn't a tendency outside London to think that London is a wealthy place. And of course, parts of it are, but the two poorest boroughs in the country are in London. Croydon has got an enormous amount of social problems, an enormous amount of issues with mental health, with kids, with gang stuff, all sorts of stuff. And the Palace Foundation, like every other football club in the country, does brilliant stuff to try and help with that. So I'm really proud that and also I get to go to Selhurst Park for meetings. And I get really excited. I'm going to Selhurst Park for a meeting, and you can't help. You're not allowed to, but you just wander out in the director's box and you sit there and you look at the pitch and you think,
Look at the pitch, yeah.
you look at the pitch and you can't help but I'll see Julian Speroni making the best save a Palace player's ever made against John Terry. I'll see Barry Silkman scoring a goal. I'll see the goal that took us top of the first division in 1980. You see all these things and it's brilliant to be part of.
Yeah,
and it just makes me. Then it comes back to that thing. I've got other stuff in my life, but apart from family, it is the most important thing in my life. Yeah. And the amount of people, which is why the FA Cup final was so emotional, because the 36 of us travelled to the FA Cup final. We booked a table for 36 in the pub that we met, and that's just a core group of people that I've grown up with, who I've known through football. And then after the FA Cup final, at the final whistle, you can't help remembering all those people that weren't here to see that. And like my dad died a couple of years back, and I used to as the final whistle went at every game, I'd phone my dad up. And he said, "How'd we get on, son?" I said, "We won." And he's like, and he loved Benteke. Christian Benteke was his favourite player. He loved Benteke. And he said, "Did Benteke score?" I say, "Yeah, he did. He did." And it's like that moment, and the fact that I couldn't phone my dad after the cup final, and the Benteke thing, I don't know how he got to find out, but when my dad died, I got a really nice message from the club. But Benteke tweeted how his condolences, and then it's that sort of thing that makes you go, "That's why I love this. That's why I love this club." You know what I mean? And then all the things that they do wrong, you forgive them for, but it's just. I know Sunderland fans, especially of my age, will listen to this and fully understand it. Really, even the young ones. But I think for my generation, football has an even more impact. You're obviously much younger than me, Chris, and you're as passionate about football as I am. But even though I don't get to as many away games as I would like to, I still can't miss a home game. And if I do occasionally have to miss a home game, I'll go to the pub. I can't not go to the. That's the bit. It's why I love boxing. The first thing I look out for when the fixtures come out is the Boxing Day game, because I just want to be at home on Boxing Day, because that's when everyone turns up. And when I do get very emotional, because the Parsons Arms is owned by Palace fans. It's covered in Palace memorabilia. It's covered in photographs of people that away fans would have no idea who they are. It's like it's good to know that if a Sunderland fan wanders in, he might recognise Dave Swindlers.
Yep.
but most football fans wouldn't recognise. There's a picture of Rashid Harkouk. No one knows who he is. It hasn't got his name up on it, but we know who he is. But when you're in there sometimes, and everyone's in red and blue, and there's 3 generations. I mean, that's the other thing. I've got mates of mine who've got grandkids now that I first started going to games with, and when you see all these 3 generations of people in red and blue, it makes my heart swell. It really does. And every club has that. Every fans have that now, and that's why the Morecambe thing, the Bury thing, is just so wrong. Yeah. No club, with the amount of money that's in football, there has to be some kind of welfare fund, some kind of benevolent fund, where if a club is in trouble, you get rid of the owner who's caused the trouble, you give that club enough money. They have to pay it back. It's not a loan, but they have to pay it back. But no football club should ever go out of business for the want of 30,000 quid. In Bury's case, and that wrong'un, Steve Dale, drove that club into the ground, and then it's 30,000 quid that meant a club that had been at the heart of its community for 120 years disappeared. That's not right.
Yeah, I think everything you've just been saying there, I think everybody listening will be kind of nodding along to everything there, including the feelings around the football club, and because you've touched on it, let's go into that kind of cup win last season, because when I was growing up, so it was kind of late 80s, Steve Coppell, and then you obviously had the cup final in 1991, 1990, of course. But also at the time you were, I always remember it being, because I could never understand it when I was young, but you were also wizards in the full members cup, of course, and you got at least the semi-final 4 years in a row. You won the Zenith Data Systems Cup,
Wembley, beating
against Everton, hammered them. But that obviously you missed out in that 1990 FA Cup final. I remember that was that was pretty much my first real cup final sitting down
Was it?
with my dad and watching it and going, this is a big cup final day.
I knew you were young. I could sense. I didn't know how young you were.
That was my
Yeah.
first real cup final day memory of just all day just soaking it all in. And then obviously you had the replay with Lee Martin. Apologies for bringing it up.
Yeah,
You've had close misses since, but try and describe to us as a club and a set of fans to win your first major trophy. Because I think if that happened now with Sunderland, let's say even if we qualify for Europe, I think the place will explode. So what was it like?
I'm not sure I can explain it, Chris, to be perfectly honest, because it's still. I'm still assimilating it myself.
As a sports fan, I have to confess, sometimes the game gets kind of boring. That's when I unfold my Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 and use multi-window viewing on its large screen. Boring game? I'm checking out my fantasy baseball league at the same time. Score still 1-0? I'm replying to emails in the other window, scoring points with the boss. Semifinals finally getting exciting? I'm buying tickets to the finals and booking my flights. Can your phone do that?
The new Galaxy Z Fold 7. Get yours at Samsung.com.
Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contracts. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
For a limited time at McDonald's, get a Big Mac extra value meal for $8. That means 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, and medium fries, and a drink. We may need to change that jingle.
Prices and participation may vary.
A little bit. I had to do some research a couple of weeks ago, and I just wanted to check when was the last time a non-Premier League team won the FA Cup. And I went onto this website, and at the bottom it said 2025 Crystal Palace, and it's like, oh my God, it's like it's still it's a difficult. I generally get the 1991 was a strange one because Steve Coppell, we love Steve Coppell. He's one of the nicest people I've ever met. And then when we were in, he ended up being our manager 4 times. And the last 2 times we were in terrible financial straits, and he wasn't getting paid, and he was guiding a team of kids and misfits. And and that 1990 team, 8 of them were from South London. We were the first team to have a nucleus of black players, all from South London. So, and we were really proud of the South London roots of that team. But it wasn't. We ended up 3rd in Division 1 in 1991, but we weren't a good team to watch. We were very much a long ball. It was like get it up to Brighty to knock it onto Brighty as quickly as you can. That FA Cup final, Wembley was a terrible shithole those days. It was a terrible shithole, but the FA Cup final was a great game. It's disappointing, but the semi-final had sort of taken it out, because the semi-final until then had been the best day of my. See, I've been in negotiations with my wife and my son, and they agree that I'm allowed to say the day we won the FA Cup is the best day of my life. Right? They're happy with that. I've had to relegate a few other football things out of the list, but until then, the 4-3 against Liverpool was the greatest moment of my life, without a doubt. The replay of 1990 was one of the worst games I've seen. And for some reason, well, I know why. It's for money. We wore a kit we'd never ever wore. We wore a yellow and black kit that they'd had knocked up for the replay. We lost the replay. It was horrible. Just a horrible night. Then we got to we almost sneaked into the final in 2016. We didn't really play anyone of any note until we got to the final. We beat Everton in the quarterfinal, I think, and played really well. And then we beat Watford. And again, Watford are a team who don't like us because they think Zaha died for a penalty in the playoff in 2013, which he didn't, right? And Palace fans have got no dislike for Watford except for Harry the Hornet. We can't stand Watford because every time we played them away, he would do this dive. He would dive every time the ball went near. Like, he would horror. I don't care. I don't know who was inside there, but to the extent that we hatched this plan, we wanted to get a giant glass made and a giant beer mat, so we could put the glass over him, put the beer mat underneath him, and throw him out of fucking Watford Stadium. But that final, we played a good Man United. Young people listening to this would go, "Good, you played a good Man United team."
Yeah.
We played a decent Man United team. We scored the first goal, and Pardew did his dad dancing, and that angered the gods of football, who immediately let them equalise, and they beat us. So it got to the stage, Chris, where I was, like I said, I was perfectly happy with mid-table Premier League. It got to the stage where it was almost becoming a badge of honour not to have won anything. It's like, you go, yeah, it's easy at sport club. You won stuff, great. Anyone can be an Arsenal fan. Anyone can support Liverpool. You try being a Palace fan, but you sort of become proud. And then again, the first two rounds we played Stockport and then Doncaster, and we all go, that's fine. As soon as we play a decent team, we'll be knocked out. Then we played Millwall, and they tried to kill Mateta. I still can't get over the fact the ref only gave a yellow card initially for that.
Yeah.
And we didn't play at all well against Millwall, but we beat them. And then we went to Fulham for the quarterfinal. We'd been playing decent football, but we went to Fulham for the quarterfinal. They battered us for the first 10 minutes. After that, out of nowhere, we played football of a quality I hadn't seen us play for a long time. And we came out of that thinking, do you know what? That's that cliche. It's like, we don't think about it, but you're going, whoever gets to play. And then in the semi-final against Villa, best 90 minutes I've seen Palace play. We were brilliant, and we so deserved to beat them 3-0. And the atmosphere at the end of that was just astonishing, because we've got a group of players. For the first time in years, we've got a group of players, and I think a lot of it is to do with the fact that 7 or 8 of them are Christians. But we got a group of players who obviously like each other, and they love the manager. The celebrations at the end of that semi-final were incredible. And then we got City, and we'll go, looking another day out at Wembley. And they'd beaten us 5-2 like 3 weeks beforehand at their place. And then, but we all went to Wembley. We had a fantastic time beforehand, but we all went to Wembley going, we can't do what Forest did, because Forest were terrible in the semi-final. With hindsight, I'm delighted that they were, but we can't do. And then for the first 10 minutes, we did exactly that. We didn't get a sniff for the first 10 minutes, and because it was really interesting that evening, the day after, Alan Shearer saying Palace did a number on Man City. Palace kept the ball away from them. Didn't feel like that. It felt like we were getting back. When the 10 minutes went up at the end, you just go, we can't get through 10 minutes of this. And it was just that last 10 minutes was both the longest and the shortest 10 minutes of my life. I'm a really nervous watcher of football. So during the semi-final, even though we were playing really well, I'd worked out that it took 6 minutes to get from my seat to the toilet. That was a good way of taking up 6 minutes of the game. Right. So during the final, I must have had the emptiest bladder in London. Right. So that 10 minutes went up, and I went, well, okay, there's going to have to be a toilet break for the first 5 minutes. But then that last 5 minutes, and a mate of mine had said, if a ref gives that long, if it gives 10 minutes, he's got to blow the whistle on 10. Right? Unless something happens, he's really got to blow the whistle on 10. And then Doku had a terrible shot that he pulled wide. And we just suddenly looked at each other. We thought, we've won. He's going to blow the whistle next time this ball goes in the air. And you had this sort of bizarre, strange 5 seconds where, if it was a film, I don't know how you describe it, but everything that had happened to me in my decades of Palace fandom, I sort of saw in that 5 seconds. And then when he blew the whistle, there was a millisecond of disbelief. And then suddenly, I've never known chaos like it. I've never known. I ended up about 15 rows away from where I started. I've never seen so many people crying. And then when the trophy was lifted, I can't describe it. It's just something you think this will never happen to us. The next my son came around the next morning, 28, he's threw himself into my arms like he hadn't done since he was 3. I watched it again on a Saturday night, and I watched it again on ITV. I watched the full coverage on ITV on a Sunday night in case they showed something different. It was probably only about 2 weeks ago that at the end of the night, I'll just go, I didn't know you could get YouTube on telly. I didn't know this because I'm old, right? When my son I said, I'll show this YouTube thing on the phone. He went, no, you see it on the telly. As soon as I found that out, I've disappeared down a rabbit hole every night of finding new YouTube videos from a new angle. There was a German bloke who came over and was in the palace and filmed it, and I watched it about 4 times. And I found a video that's just of the last 5 minutes of the palace fans singing, because I've never known an atmosphere like it. And the two tifos as well that we had at Wembley that went round the world, the displays we had at Wembley, which were astonishing. And the thing with the HF, the fanatics who do those tifos, which are brilliant, they don't make sense to anybody who's not a Palace fan. Right? They're not like you see continental teams with their tifos. If we'd been an Italian team, it'd be a massive eagle eating a seagull. Yeah, I mean, it'd be that sort of thing. Whereas ours were two scenes from Palace history that only we know. Yeah, which I like. So we took over Wembley both games, and it was incredible. But the few days afterwards, and then I just the UEFA, the Euro stuff kicked in. Didn't bother me a bit. We did actually. I'm lying, but so Palace decided to display the FA Cup trophy. And to Steve Parish's credit, although of course he doesn't get credit from a lot of people, Steve Parish said West Ham charged their fans to see the FA Cup. Spurs charged their fans to see the Europa League Cup. And Steve Parish went, no, it's got to be free because we can't have kids not being able to see the trophy because they can't afford a fiver or whatever. He also provided a professional photographer.
Brilliant.
For free, but that's partly because he said if we let people take their own photographs, they'll be shonky. So which is great. But he and also he suggested, he said, why as we're not charging, why don't, as people come in, the foundation can be there, and then we'll have a display, so we did that. So as people came in,
that's brilliant.
So I did like 5 days in the I did 5 days on duty, just meeting and greeting people, and saying the FA Cup, and then just while you're in a good mood, do you fancy? And then seeing the look on the faces of people when they saw the FA Cup is just so wonderful to behold. It's telling little kids that's the actual trophy that Mark Gahey lifted at Wembley, and no, you can't touch it because those two men in the uniforms and white gloves will be. But it's just astonishing. And then we went and won the community. And as a kid, I loved the Charity Shield, which I still call it as a kid, because it meant football was back.
Yeah.
And one of my earliest football memories is Keegan and Bremner having a massive punch up on the pitch in the Community Shield. So I loved the community. So when we went and won the Community Shield at Wembley, and deservedly so, I got just as emotional when we won that as I did when we won the FA Cup. But I can't. All I can say to every fan who asks me about describing it is, I just hope you get to do it. I just hope you get to do it. And it's strange as well when you saw. When I scoffed a little bit when Newcastle won the Carabao Cup. You kind of, I remember I was talking to my son. We watched the game live together, and you kind of go, if you want to be a big team, you shouldn't be going that mad at winning the Carabao Cup. Right, but I fully understood it when we won the FA Cup. But one of the things that I found really odd was that people were talking about the romance. Newcastle won the Carabao Cup, Palace won the Premier League, won the FA Cup. There's no romance in that. How have we come to a stage when we so expect Man City or Arsenal or Chelsea or Liverpool to win the FA Cup, the trophy that was traditionally won by people outside the top 4, the top 6? We've reached a stage where Newcastle, one of the technically richest clubs in the world, and Palace, a club who'd been in the Premier League for 14 years, winning the trophies was considered romantic. There's no romance there. It's two good sides winning 2 big trophies. That should be happening every season.
Yeah.
But all I wish I just wish I know there are all sorts of trophies for, if Southend fans are listening to this or Hereford fans are listening to this, I know there are all sorts of routes to Wembley. I just hope that every fan gets a chance to go what we went through, because it's that classic. They can never take that away from us. And, when Match of the Day starts next season, showing the FA Cup, Match of the Day will probably find a way to stop it happening. But, the last shot will be us lifting the FA Cup. So for last year, but then even simple things around it, like Dean Henderson turning up in the box park at Croydon about 11 o'clock that night with Will Hughes, both of them obviously pissed, right? And getting on stage, and there's this Palace PR bloke, right, or comms team, whatever they used to call them. We used to have one bloke called Terry who did everything, right, basically. Now we're an established Premier League team. We've got teams of people who are done. In the old days, if you had a problem, you phone Terry up and say, no. Now you have to go through. But anyway, so this bloke from the media team is obviously trying to get them to not do this. But Hendo just gets up. He had a full pint in his hand. He just gets up and started singing "Waka Waka, we're 12th again. Who gives a fuck? We won the FA Cup." Then downs the pint, puts it on his head, which then, of course, falls off, and Will Hughes catches it and gets a massive round of applause. It's that sort of thing that I wish every fan gets to enjoy that as well. And the fact Brighton have never won a trophy. We've got. Have you ever seen Brighton lift a cup? They've got a new song, and it's like when they nearly won the FA Cup, and Smith must go on, but that's the only time I've ever supported Man United in any game in my life, and that was such a relief when Man United won that game. But it's just, I know you asked me a simple question, but there's no simple answer for that. I could have just said it felt great, but there's no simple answer, and it's just, to be honest, reliving those memories. I remember, that I don't know why it stuck out so much, that 1973 Cup final for me. When I think of the FA Cup, that's the one in my head that crops up. And there was there was something about that Sunderland kit. There was something about the hair of the Sunderland players. There was something about, my dad hated Leeds United more than any other. He hated them. He could not stand Leeds United. He really couldn't. So we obviously supported Sunderland. Then I remember a brilliant. It was shown on local news on the Monday down here. And it was like, it's obviously from a documentary, but it was a 10-minute segment, and it was like just showing the town of Sunderland on the match day. It's totally empty. The shops were still open, but they were all covered in tinfoil FA Cups, red and white, and it just somehow resonated with me.
That's on YouTube. It's called Back in Sunderland. It's all on YouTube.
Well,
there's like half an hour of it, I think.
I'll have to see it all, because for me that was that's the FA Cup for me. That's the one I think of when you talk about the magic of the FA Cup, which disappeared completely. When Man United were allowed not to take part in the FA Cup that time, that was a period, a decade, when the FA Cup probably could have gone under and nobody would have really cared in a way. But it's sort of back a little bit, I would say that. But there was a time when I was growing up as a kid, because that was you very rarely saw live football on TV. So FA Cup day, you had FA Cup, it's a knockout, and you had the player profiles, and the camera was on the coach, and all this sort of stuff. Celebrity five-a-side. It was fantastic. So, we haven't mentioned the game. We've got a game coming up on Saturday.
I was going to say, and just very quickly, because I mentioned the early 90s, can I be really self-indulgent just for a second?
Yeah.
And just very quickly, if you can just give us a summary, because it's like a dagger to the heart. I'm still in pain off this when I was a kid. But Marco Gabbiadini, what happened? Very quickly.
Do you know what? I saw him. He scored. We beat Liverpool 2-0 away. And for reasons lost in time, we all went up there. It had been designated as Hat Day for Palace fans. Well, one of the fanzines had just said, this district round. So Palace fans all had hats on, except me. I didn't. That sort of thing. I don't like being told what to do, basically. I did have a puppet, but I didn't. So all Palace fans were up there. There's 2,000 all in. And Gabbiadini, we beat him 2-0. I think Jeff Thomas scored the second. Gabbiadini scored the first. Gabbiadini was unplayable. He was unplayable that day. Unfortunately, that was the only day you could say that. about him. He had the unenviable task of following Ian. Nobody was going to follow Ian Wright for us, because Ian Wright was one of those players. And I get on really well with Ian, and Ian still says to me, "What will it take for you to stop calling me Judas?" And basically, I say it will take a time machine, so you can travel back in time and not kiss your fucking Arsenal badge when you scored against us in the first goal he scored for Arsenal was against us. So, but Ian Wright, Ian Wright was incredible because he didn't become a professional footballer till he was 23, so he'd never been coached. So no one had ever said to him, "You can't take the ball with your back to goal on your knee, turn and volley it home from 45 yards out. You've got to take it down, give it to Mark Bright." No one had ever told him that. So Wrighty would do things that we've never seen anyone else do, and he just fitted. He was just a scally. Do you know what I mean? He was just a lad, and he acknowledges that Mark Bright made him the player that. I love Mark Bright is the most. I love him to bits, but as somebody once said to me about Mark Bright, for some people the glass is half full, for some people the glass is half empty, for some people the glass is smashed and heading for their face. Right, and that's pretty much Brighty's attitude. I once really upset Bright. I was hosting a Player of the Year thing at Fairfield Hall, Biggles, and Wrighty turned up. He was like, this is long after he'd stopped playing for Wrighty turned up, and of course was turned up a little bit late. Had to make the big entrance, waving at people. And I went, "Hey, Ian Wright's here, everybody," and then did a badge kissing moment, of course. But and I said, "Well, if Wright is here, Mark Bright must be here with him. I presume about 15 yards behind him, trying to catch up." And Bright just got me at half time. He pinned me up against the wall and explained to me why the litany of his injury. But he's a Palace through and through, Brighty. We love him. But Brighty acknowledges that Mark Bright made him half the player he was. But we love Bright. But whoever took over, it's like taking over from Alex Ferguson at Man United. You don't want to be the first person. But Gabbiadini's reputation was, and he looked. It's like when we signed Thomas Brolin. You go, he's a really good player, isn't he? So who's that bloke there then? And it's just, we were still playing really direct football. I think what it is, our style of football didn't suit Gabbiadini at all. It just didn't suit him. We were still getting the ball up really quick. But that one game against Liverpool, he looked fantastic. And I kind of felt for him because it never really happened for him in a way I think it would have done if he hadn't gone to us. Strangely.
Yeah. So my first hero, that was painful when he left. But yeah, look, I think we need to get on to the game of the weekend. Because look, it's been a strange summer. You've had the Gahey saga, if you like, on the deadline day. But obviously, Eze going to Arsenal hit the headlines as well. So look, where are Palace fans' heads at after fantastic season, first major trophy, and then you've had this sort of a summer? So where are things?
Apart from one or two middle class navel gazers and bedwetters, right? It's my theory that the more middle class a Palace fan is, the more likely he is to not like Steve Parish, because Steve Parish was pro-Brexit. Right? I don't agree with Steve Parish's views on Brexit. I don't agree with Steve Parish's views on the distribution of money in football. I don't agree with Steve Parish's views on the independent regulator. But I'm a grown-up, so I'm still able to have a conversation with him, even though I don't disagree with him on some things. Unfortunately, there are some Palace fans who can't have the discussion, even metaphorically. What I think, the UEFA stuff was a nuisance, but if the bonus for winning the FA Cup was a place in the Conference League, I'd have been the happiest bloke in the world. Frankly, as it happens, I think we've ended up in a competition that we can win, and I don't think we could have won the Europa League. But that, for most Palace fans, that was just a distraction because we won the FA Cup. We won the Community Shield. We're unbeaten since March. Right? We're 15 games unbeaten. Right? This is the hardest thing to say out loud. We're a good side. We're a good. This is probably the best Palace team I've seen for a long time. Consistently the best Palace team. And it's odd because he's so wedded to that style, the 5-2-3. However, he never changes it. But yet, teams still struggle to deal with it. we've got a group of players, and Glasner. Glasner was never going to go if Gahey went. The whole Gahey situation was very different to the Isak situation. Gahey didn't want the move. He wasn't engineering a move. He said quite publicly that he was happy to stay and see out his contract, and then he'll go and he'll make a lot more money on wages than he would have. Glasner was never going to go if Gahey went. That was just nonsense, made up nonsense. He will go at the end of the season. He made it quite plain. He signed a 2-year contract, and he made it quite plain that he probably wanted to step up to bigger things, either back in Germany or Austria, or a bigger Premier League club. He's always said that, and he will go with our blessing. If he can get us top 10, that would be fantastic. But I'm still sometimes reluctant to say this in case I jinx it, but we're an established Premier League team, and like I said, from my perspective, that's not a bad thing to be. And it's very different to when the football that we saw under Pardew or Hodgson. Like Pardew was an idiot. Pardew was like Kevin Keegan. Basically, Pardew's tactics were someone sounds a bugle and everyone runs forward and tries to score a goal, and then looks back and goes, hang on a second, they've scored again. Hodgson started out wanting to retain, and we love Roy Hodgson, he's a Palace hero, but Hodgson's philosophy was to retain the point that we started with, essentially, and then see what happened afterwards. So trips to Selhurst Park under Roy Hodgson were not happy. You had to persuade us out of the pub sometimes with the football that we're watching. Some of the football we're playing now is of a quality that we haven't seen before. The professionalism at the club, off the field as well. It's like Glasner is I've met Glasner a couple of times, a very nice chap, but then he would be in the circumstance. When you meet managers at fundraisers, of course they're nice.
Yeah.
But no one at the club has got a bad word for him. From it's a cliche, but from the tea lady upwards, no one's got a bad word for him. He's not soft by all means. He can be quite difficult, but the standards he's set in terms of training, conditioning, it's like he brought people in because he was a mate of mine who works for Palace TV. Did the first interview with him when he turned up, and he's like, "We've got a brilliant training ground now," but he was just asking, "Well, where's the dietitian?" Oh, we haven't got one. It's like, really? So he's brought a whole team in. So he's lifted the club to new levels of professionalism. We've always been, as a local journalist said, Palace have always been just the right side of tin pot. If you know what I mean, we've tended to get away with things, right? But to the extent that we've been in the Premier League for 14 years now, so we're getting away with it quite well. But we've now got on and off the pitch an organisation we've never had before. We're a good side. I think, from your point of view, I think we're the best side you've played so far this 100%. Season, without a doubt. I think the fixture computer was very. I still think. I think West Ham and Brentford. The last 3 or 4 seasons, you've looked at the Premier League and you've gone, I want some teams to stay up, but not at our expense, obviously. But you look at the table and you go, but I can't see which of the established teams are going to go down. This season, from the start, you looked at West Ham and Brentford in particular. You think they might be the two that struggle, and you got to play both of them at home. West Ham, despite their performance at Forest, I think West Ham. I think Potter will probably be gone by. So I think their home form is going to. That'll be what keeps you up. It will probably be what relegates them. But so the computer's been kind to you. In other seasons, in Roy Hodgson's seasons, I would have said you've got every chance of coming away with something. And you still have, but you're going to have to play well to beat us, and you've got good players to do that. The one thing that we don't score a lot of goals, right? And we don't score. The goals aren't really spread around the team. Most of the goals are coming from Mateta and Sarr. We're not scoring a lot of goals from midfield. Sarr's out on Saturday, which is a loss. Wharton's out, which is a huge loss because he's been our best player. But again, he hasn't contributed any goals. Wharton's out, but we've got a lot of cover in midfield. The Eze thing is a strange one because he's always going to be worshipped at Selhurst Park. He scored the winning goal in the FA Cup final.
Yeah,
but Eze he could disappear for 3 games in a row, and he could make. And I don't think Glasner certainly wasn't making threats that he'd leave if Eze went, because he's been a bit of a luxury player for Glasner, I think, because Glasner. Eze, he's not he doesn't like to tackle back. he will stop the ball, and he's one of the best players we've ever had. But he's different to Wilf Zaha, because Wilf would do what he was told in the team system, whereas Eze the ball would get to him, and Glasner wants the ball to be moved forward. We're quite happy behind the ball, but when we get it, he wants it moved forward quickly. And quite often it would get to Eze and it would stop. And every now and again he'd pick out a perfect pass, but most times he would put it backwards. So Eze's a big miss. And I'll be interested to see whether Glasner's not a great one for throwing new players in. So I don't think Pino is a brilliant buy from us for Villarreal, but I don't think he'll throw him in. I think he'll probably play Camado on that side. But the only thing I will tell you is that we will start with 5 at the back, 2 in midfield and 3 up front. We do struggle. We really struggle against teams who sit back. Even Fredrikstad, who made it a really long night at Sellers Park, we simply couldn't break them down. I'm hoping, looking at the games I've seen you play, I'll tell you that you're not the players. You don't seem to be the sort of team that are set up to do that. But if there's an issue, it's the fact that we don't score goals, and if we can't get Mateta in the game, we do struggle.
Well, I think you will see us sit in and try and hit you on the break, which might be interesting considering what you've just said. And it was interesting as well that you were absolutely right saying, this is the toughest game we've had so far, and Sunderland fans are looking forward to that actually, because we're looking forward to seeing where we stand, because actually I think it's still difficult to know that. And I think this is going to be true of every Premier League side, even the Burnley game that we had away from home. But do you think there's a different type of pressure when Sunderland come to town for any Premier League club, where almost they're thinking, we have to get 3 points here because this should be a 3-pointer?
I think our 3-0 win at Villa was a big one for me. And again, which is a mate of mine who still works at the BBC had a bit of a go at me because I tweeted afterwards, and it got a massive response. We just qualified for Europe. We just won away from home, and the narrative was, with a lot of Palace fans, that Villa game, we're winning at half time, but we're going to be so exhausted after that 58-hour flight from Norway that we had, that we're never going to be able to hold on in the second half. And in the second half, we looked stronger than they did. That was a really good win for us. Match of the Day 2's post-match analysis, they showed the penalty and then spent the rest of the time talking about Gahey and why he's going to be a really good player for Liverpool, which I was infuriated about. But what that did, that win, if we hadn't won that, if we weren't 8th in the table, I would agree. I think there would be more pressure on us to go and beat Sunderland. But the fact is, I think Glasner's quite happy with our away form. Is exceptional. It's really good at our away form because we're set up better to play away. We've got real good pace with the wing backs. Munoz in particular gets forward so well, and away from home, obviously teams leave space in behind. I think Glasner, he wants to win every game, but a point at home is not a disaster for us. It's really not, and the atmosphere will be rocking because obviously your fans are really noisy and raucous. I don't think Palace fans will think this is. It's not. In previous seasons, we would have, and like you say, you're getting used to do this. In previous seasons, certainly the first 3 seasons of the Premier League, you're going, well, we have to beat the teams that came up with us, and then you identify 1 or 2 teams that you think we should be beating them, and then you think, well, maybe we can get a decent result against a Villa or a Newcastle or another mid-table team. You think there are 6 teams we can't beat. But we're at the stage now, there isn't a team in the Premier League that I don't think we can beat. And I can't tell you how difficult it is for me to say that out loud, Chris, because I do worry that I jinx it. And I've never been able to say that out loud with any credibility before because I would have been lying. But now, if you play well and you beat us, then well done. But you'll have to play well to beat us because I can't remember. We had 2 disastrous games when he first took over Glasner, and the plan was that he took over at the end of that season, but he took over in March. We won the first one against a really bad Burnley team, and then we had 2 games at the start of last season when we couldn't replace Elise. We simply, it was in the first 8 games we were lost throughout the league. We had one really bad game at home against Fulham when we were terrible. That's honestly the last time I can remember us leaving a Palace game going, we were shocking. Because since then, we've been, but the basic level has been competent. And for the most part, we've been good. We've been all right. Like I say, we don't batter teams, but we're in every game we play. And this is a new one on us. So, whereas I think 3 years ago, well, we would have all been nervous. We would be going, well, Sunderland have won 2 games. They're still going to be full of post-promotion adrenaline. They brought some really good players in, some really good young players. Whereas now we're going, they're going to have to play well to beat us. And if they do, like I say, well played. So I'm actually looking forward to it. I'm glad the international break's over because, again, that 2.5 hours in the pub is the most important bit. I'm happy to get in there. I'm looking forward. Sunderland should be in the Premier League. Like Sheffield Wednesday, there are some teams in my head that the Premier League would have to be made a lot bigger for them all to fit in. But there are some teams in my head who should be in the top league, basically. And in my head, Sunderland are one of them. I can't wait for your game against Newcastle. It's one of the games that any football fan wants to sit. I fully understand that most football fans wouldn't be going, Palace Brighton next week. They'll cancel all plans. We have to watch Palace Brighton. But most football fans will find, if they can, if it's a Monday night and they're not playing, will go, I will sit down and watch this one. So I'm looking. Obviously, now I've said all this. This will be the game where the wheels come off, and we end the game chanting Glasner out. But yeah.
Well, I'm clinging on to anything, and the fact that we've won on our last 3 visits to Selhurst Park.
Yeah, you got a good record at Palace. Yeah.
We won. It was amazing last time. I think it was our only away win of the season.
And you could have scored. You could have scored twice as many goals as you did.
It was absolutely crazy. We weren't expecting that one. So I'm hanging on to anything we can. Yeah. But yeah, do you think? Let's say 99% of Palace fans they'll be going along to Selhurst Park, surely thinking, we should be getting 3 points.
They probably will, but we're not Arsenal fans. They won't be thinking that in an arrogant way. They will be, Palace fans will know. They'll be going, the fingers will be crossed when we're saying we should be getting the 3 points. Yeah, like I say, I would really much rather that you lost all 3 games 5 or 6-0, and then I'd be a bit more confident. But you've got those 6 points under your belt. You're going to be flying confidence-wise. We should be beating you at Selhurst Park, but it won't be a disaster if we don't. Really, I generally can't see any circumstances in which. I always say at the start of the season, it's a running joke on TalkSport, as I always do the first week, and they say, "What's your ambition?" Stay up. That's my ambition, and they go, "Come on, you're better than that." I say, "No. But this is the first season, hand on heart. I think I can probably say out loud, we will stay up. We're a decent team, so there's no fear there. I don't think we'll finish. I don't think we'll qualify for Europe for our league position, despite the fact that everything I've said has been positive. I still think we'll finish somewhere between 7th and 12th, and if we do, that would be great. But I'd rather we were looking upwards than looking downwards. But we should be beating Sunderland in an ideal world. But I don't think if you lose to us, I don't think that's a disaster for you either, really, because you weren't lucky in either of those two home games. I do think you were playing 2 of the poorer teams in the Premier League, but you weren't lucky to beat them. And also, I was really impressed with the positivity that you showed in both those games as well. So, I hope you show a little bit of that against us on Saturday. But also, the one thing I want, what Palace fans have to do now is get the UEFA thing out of that system. We've had the demonstrations now. We've had the UEFA chants now. I just want to put that behind us. I want to stop all that and just focus on singing about Palace and about Glasgow rather than anti-UEFA songs. And I'm going to say what Kieran would say here. I hope football is the winner.
Yeah. Well, yeah, just on that, because last point, and for a really good thing, actually, it's Sunderland's third 3 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday, which I think is absolutely brilliant. But it's one of those, it's 2 teams, it's 2 kind of traditional teams. Sunderland, we're going for a trip to a ground that's got a bit of character left still.
Yeah.
And one of those Saturday afternoons actually that make you go, oh, I can't wait for that.
Yeah, a ground that's got a bit of character or shithole. Either way, but we don't mind. It's Steve Parish is determined to have his new stand. None of us are bothered by it. We love Selhurst Park. It's a shabby little old-fashioned ground, and that suits us down to the ground. The 3 o'clock kickoff, I hate the fact that Sky are trumpeting inside games across the weekend. Fuck off. It's the same with the FA Cup games across the. So the first game's on the Thursday night, the second one's the last one's on the Tuesday night. Go fuck off. Really, seriously. The 3 o'clock kickoff, I know there's no logic. The logic of the 3 o'clock kickoff goes back to industrial working conditions in the 1880s. So what? I don't care. 3 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday is what we all look for. It's the ideal time to play a football match. And I love this time of year as well. I hate summer, but this time of year when autumn's starting to creep in, it's you think I wear a jacket all the way through the summer just to defy him. The sun, but it's like you say, it's two traditional teams. I see. I love the fact that Steve Parish. Well, we have this thing, South London and Proud, right? Which I think branding. I don't like the idea of branding, and I do have to go. I'm sorry, I don't like the idea of branding, but that as a piece of branding 10 years ago works for us. Particularly, we don't want a global fan base, right? We're not that sort of club. And I suspect Sunderland are the same. The vast majority of our fans probably, we've got a lot of Irish fans, a lot of Scandinavian fans. For the vast majority of our fans, it takes less than an hour to get to the home games. Right? And I suspect that you haven't got the same sort of global fan base that other Premier League fans have. We certainly haven't. And that's not a problem for any of us. It really isn't a problem for any of us. We're a South London team who came out of the glass workers who rebuilt the Crystal Palace just down the road, and I'm perfectly happy with that. I've got no ambitions to, I understand why clubs like Tottenham and Arsenal want to be a global brand. I get that, but it's not for us. So, as you say, it's two traditional clubs rooted in their community having a proper tear up on the pitch.
Brilliant. Well, on that note, it just leaves me to say, Kevin, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we really appreciate your time. And apart from the result, of course, let's move that to one side. Enjoy your few hours in the pub and enjoy the game.
Yeah, and have a safe journey down. I hope you enjoy the journey back, slightly less, but I think you'll be all right this season. So, all right, nice to talk to you, Chris.
Brilliant. Cheers, Kevin. Oh, much appreciated. And thanks again for everyone for listening. Don't forget, we'll have immediate reaction after the final whistle with a pod that should drop very soon. And we'll have all the reaction on the Roker Report website. So look out for all of that. But from us, bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.